So everyone and welcome. So today on the level design of Yooka-Laylee, we're gonna take a look at the Glitterglaze Glacier, the second tome world of the game. And right off the bat we can see that this stage, like any other stage, has a little intro area that I've mentioned before, where it just presents you a little bit of walking with a linear path that you get funneled towards, and you have to use the ability that you've just learned outside of the stage in order to continue. In this case it would be the flutter. So interestingly enough, the flutter is not actually an ability that you need to have at pretty much any point in the game, if I can remember correctly, because you can just do stuff like this, and stuff like that works in a lot of places, and later on when you fly you can just fly anywhere, everywhere. So interestingly enough, you don't actually ever need the flutter. Oh. Anyway, what I like about the intro for this one is, by the way, the intro is in my opinion the best part of this stage, because it doesn't do anything wrong, and the stuff that it does well, it does well. So, as I mentioned in the part 1 already, the intro area serves as making sure that you remember the move that you need in order to do a lot of stuff in the stage and get around nicely, and don't randomly forget what you have to do because you forget that you can flutter, or you forget that you can roll, forget that you can go invisible, stuff like that. So make sure that doesn't happen. And it also gives you a sort of intro to, how would I say this? It gives you a location from which you can peer into the level and then figure out, okay, this is where the entrance is, and from here I'm going to the rest of the stage. In the first stage, what happened is you were on a cliff, and from that cliff you can then see into the center of the stage, and you can then sort of get your first little idea, oh, I'm on the edge, going towards the center. So you can start drawing your internal map or whatever that you would use to get yourself around. And that the intro area does a really nice job of that, making sure that you don't start somewhere in the middle of the stage, because if you start in the middle of the stage it can be a bit overwhelming of where everything is. It's going to be hard to figure out where stuff is. I'm having an intro area that starts linearly from the side of the stage, make sure that you don't get overwhelmed and you get a nice little bit of start into figuring out where everything is on the stage. Now what I like about this intro part is that you are presented with a secondary path, and when you just come here the first time you might be like, oh, maybe get up here a little bit, okay, but what now? You can't actually quite get up there yet, because you need to have this move, the spring jump, whatever it's called. I don't know the name of all of these moves, even though I buy them every playthrough, 100%, whatever. And I like that it shows you that there's this possibility of going this other way right at the start, but because there's nothing else really around here that could clue you in on how to get up there other than, I guess I have to be able to jump higher, you don't really spend a lot of time you're trying to figure out how do I get up there, how do I get up there, I can't, Because if let's imagine there was a ton of other stuff surrounding me, you would maybe jump around somewhere else, try and do some weird stuff with enemies, try and use some moves in some other places to figure out how to get up there. But if it's just okay, it's a jump, you can't make the jump. Very simple to find out, okay, I need to be able to jump higher. All of that said, you can still do this. And that's probably one of the first speedrun tricks a lot of people find. Not that you would actually ever need this in a speedrun, because the speedrun doesn't actually need that, because by the time we get up here we have fly. So, or we don't go up here to begin with. So, sadly not useful right now, but you can do that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the thing is, when I first played this game and I saw this, I was like, oh wait a second, what if I could damage boost with the torch? And surely enough you can do that, and then you end up there, and I didn't have the move yet, so when I first played through this game, this is where I actually went. I didn't actually go over there, so I guess you could say, maybe they should have made sure that you can't break it by doing stuff with the torch or whatever, but I enjoyed that experience, even though I ended up not knowing exactly where anything is in the stage on my very first playthrough. But of course, after my first playthrough, I played through this game many times. I've put 100 hours into this game so far. So yeah, and that was only my first playthrough, so didn't didn't really matter too much on the big picture. Anyway, I wanted to say this a lot earlier, but I like that you at least get this secondary part over here that you know that you can come back later. So you would go to the other parts of the stage and then get the move, and then you would come back in here and be like, oh yeah, now I can use the move to get up here, and you get rewarded with this secondary entrance into this cave that you might have seen earlier. And you also get the energy extender down there if you remember to also get the other move, the slurp state for this stage. So you combine the slurp state and the tail leap in order to get up here, and that's what you get an energy extender for, and you get a nice little bit of get this nice experience of using something that you've just learned in order to get something awesome, and you're like, damn, that was cool. So I do like those parts about this stage. The intro part over here and the part where I've just been in the cave, and how it uses the moves that you learn in this stage to do stuff. I also like that you come over here and you would see the golden or yellow, I think it's yellow officially, yellow ghostwriter in here that sort of like waves to you, I know. And you can kind of see like, oh, I need to get in there, and you can go over here and then be like, oh, I guess you can't go in here. I guess the switch opens the door, so I guess I gotta come in from somewhere else, and then you might look around and be like, oh, probably from up there, and then you figure out, okay, you have to go up there to get in there. I really like that part. That's a really nice bit of level design right there. It shows you something that you want to get, and gives you some very clear constraints, as in, okay, you can see it, but you can't get to it. Over here is where you exit that area from, and we can also show you by having there not be like vision blocked in front of you. Like, imagine if there were like rocks or stone all over this place and you couldn't actually see that there's a path up there. But it shows you that there is a path up there, and it shows you very clearly the constraints of that you have to work with here on how to get that thing, and very naturally guides you towards the place up there on how to get it. I really like that. So you can go up there, you can figure out another puzzle with the fire, and then you get that ghostwriter and you feel good about yourselves. I like that. I like that. Also a little bit of a more linear path over here where you get more of these enemies in case you haven't seen them in the first stage. Where it's very, I also like this area doesn't really have anything else in it other than the googly eyes and the objects. By the way, I really like the fact that the googly eyes, which were pretty much a meme up until this point, are now actually a gaming mechanic. And a gaming mechanic that makes sense, because what do game designers do for games like this? They put googly eyes on everything. So let's make that a game, let's make that an enemy. A googly thing that puts itself, like puts googly eyes on stuff, and then that stuff is suddenly alive and attacks you. I like that. I don't like the fact that they're invincible when they spin and hit you, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, what I want to say is I like the fact that there's pretty much nothing else in this area other than the googly eyes and the objects, so you can very clearly see the googly eyes go on objects, and the objects then become alive and you have to fight them. And if maybe you go through here like a second or third time, you can maybe try and destroy the objects, and you'll see, oh, you can actually destroy the objects, and then the googly eyes can't go on them. Or maybe you use your sonar to stun the googly eyes and then kill them before they can attach or stuff like that. So you get a little bit of a little playing ground where you can figure out how these enemies work, and I really like that at least. So we've gone through the good parts of the stage. Well, okay, there's some other good parts later as well, but now we get to probably the biggest problem of this stage, which happens right when you come to this area. Well, first off, you can go up there and figure out that, oh, you can't really go over there unless you got something to do against the cold, because it's going to be cold over there. You can't go anywhere. And you can also go up here and be like, oh, we can't really do anything with fire. Nothing too special, just places where it's like, okay, I need something else to do here. No, not a big problem. The problem is rather you come to this area, and this area is way too open. Well, first off, the landmark that we're gonna use, this castle over there, you don't even see that. You don't even see the important landmark when coming over here, because the only thing you see when coming over here are a bunch of frozen pillars in the water and a big pool. Like, that's not a good landmark, just a bunch of frozen pillars. Like, if I were to go to the other side over there, where you can see across the water there's another platform, You know what I see from that side? Frozen pillars. If I go over there to that area, where there's ground again, across this side of the pool, you know what I see if I look at the middle? Frozen pillars. I don't actually know where anything is. The only thing I see is frozen pillars, and I don't know which side it is. I don't know where anything else is in relation to that. Now, of course, I played this game so much that I've kind of got an idea, but that area over there with all of that water, I can't for the life of me tell you what the distances between stuff actually is. And every time I play this game, for example, I'm over there at that area over there, and then I'm like, okay, where do I go next? I guess I can swing around down there and go to those platforms, like the 4, 3, 2, 1 marked platforms. Or maybe I can go over towards the ghost over there and maybe over here. But I don't really have a good feeling on the distance. Like when I'm speedrunning this and I'm trying to do routing on the fly, it's actually extremely awkward to do routing for this because I don't have any feeling on what the distances are between things and how long it takes to get around, where exactly the quills are around here. It's so disorienting because there's nothing you really, like, there's no weenie or landmark or anything around here that can like sort of guide me. There's just long stretches of water, just a bunch of ice in it. Long stretches of water with ice in it and frozen pillars again. So it's fairly confusing. There's not really anything to like guide you. I don't like it. You have this area over here, which personally I think it's pretty cool. I think there's maybe not enough stuff down here. There's a bunch of enemies, but no, whatever. Nothing too important. I like this area over here where you use the slurp state to make it to these buttons and then go from button to button while getting more slurp state stuff and get past the wind. And if you do some really cool stuff, I think you can actually, yeah, you can make it without slurp state as well. If you wait for the wind to blow down or maybe go around the side or stuff like that. So you don't have to use it as well, but it makes it a lot easier and it's the intended way. And if you have fly, you can just go all the way to the top. I personally like stuff like that. I don't actually mind it too much. Like, I'm not gonna say it's something very positive, but I don't think it's that negative either. Especially since this is a place where you would probably come to way before you learn fly anyway. Then you have Cardos. I haven't talked too much about Cardos because this is about level design, not about game design. Game design wise, I think that Cardos is a really nice idea, but very badly executed. I'm not gonna go too much into that because this is not what this is about. Anyway, let's go back to the start and try and actually get a handle on where stuff is. Well, first off, we come over here. We at least get led to Trouser in this stage very nicely. This is what this stage also does really well. You get a really nice natural path right towards Trouser where you can get your moves. And then with those moves you can go and do stuff everywhere else in the stage. And from there it kind of... See, in the first stage, the branching out that you would do, where I said at the start, since you don't really get led anywhere anymore after you go towards the central part where the temple was, you can like sort of go to the place in whichever order you want. You just see something, you go there. Which is why after you go to the central area, I didn't talk too much about about like getting guided by quills, because at that point it becomes a lot more free. So in this stage, the sort of freedom that you get can very easily get you lost. Like, for example, if you go over to that area, you really don't have any idea what's going on this side of the stage at all, and you have no idea how that even relates to the side of the stage. And there's also this area on the cliff up there, which you also have no idea about, and how it relates to anything. So then you just go from area to area, and you're just sort of trying to figure out where each of the places are, and that might take a while. So instead of being able to just take a look around and definitively find out where you are, instead you figure out where you are by going to other places that are connected to where you are, and like sort of trying to figure it out that way, which I really don't like too much. One of the ways you can also go is in here, which is a cave, which some people said they don't like that, oh, it's a teleporter and it takes you to this cave and you don't know where you are in relation to the rest of the stage. But honestly, it doesn't matter. It's a cave. It doesn't matter where you are in relation to the rest of the stage. too much, at least. As long as you remember where the exits of the cave are, and that's something that you have to test out anyway. And even if there wasn't like a teleporter, even if this thing was open, like imagine if this thing was not a teleporter, where it like fades out to black and then back in, but it was actually open, I don't think anything would change. It would be exactly the same. So I really don't know why people didn't like the fact that that thing was a teleporter. Doesn't do anything specific. I like the fact that this puzzle in here exists. There's a cool puzzle in here with the sonar shot and then figuring out the order using these crystals over here. I think that's pretty good. This cave over here is a bit too samey. It's missing a little bit of variety. Because you go through all of these places right here and don't quite know where anything is. Like, let's say for example the very first time you come in here into this cave, you don't really get a good feel of how big the cave is, where everything is in the cave. But I think for the most part it's still alright. It's not that terrible. It's not that bad. And this is where the other entrance to the cave connected to that I showed you earlier from the start. And the other exit of this cave leads you back outside. Now, if you just run in here into this cave and you just sort of go through it without really trying to figure out how you're actually moving through the stage, then when you come out of a warp like this, it can be a little bit disorienting, especially if you don't turn the camera towards the left. Like, let's say I'm just walking right here, I don't look towards the left, and I'm just going like this. This is my very first playthrough, then right now I'd be completely overwhelmed and lost. Instead of actually feeling like I'm like systematically going through a stage, I instead feel like I've just thrown myself into the middle of something and now I don't know where anything is. Especially if you then turn the camera on the left towards here, because once again, everything you see is just frozen pillars. And since the only thing you ever see in the stage are frozen pillars, you wouldn't know at this point where you actually are. So let's say this was my first playthrough, I went through that cave, I came out here. I would have no idea where I am in the stage right now. And that's not a good feeling. That's not a good feeling at all. So you kind of have to like look around, go towards the pool again, and then maybe look around. The problem is also because of these frozen pillars, you can't actually see the other places. Like, imagine if I could actually see back to the start from here, then I would be like, oh yeah, now I know where I am, because the start is over there. I guess it would have also helped if there was, well, once again, not frozen pillars, but something interesting and important, some landmark down there in the water. Let's say some castle-y thing, like up there, but down there in the water. Maybe there's a flooded area that you can see, where it's like a piece of the castle that broke off, fell down, and now it's flooded, and you can jump around in it. And you would also remove some of these pillars instead, so you got a really nice view. That would be something where from the start, from where we are right now, from the area over there, from the upper area, you could see that from everywhere without having your view blocked by stuff, and it would be fairly recognizable instead of just... How often have I said these words now, frozen pillars? Like 30 times at this point, but yeah. The thing is, the castle is a nice landmark, but it's too high up. As a player, unless you go into this like looking around mode, and actively look upwards, you don't really see that at all. The only thing you see is just frozen pillars and a lot of this ice water, which, by the way, this water has pretty much nothing in it other than enemies. This water covers like half of the stage and it has nothing in it. It only has that little ghost over there, like 3 quills in the middle here, and then the entrance to the Solstice Palace on the bottom. Like, that's it. That's all that is in the water, and it covers half the stage. That's another big thing. Why is half the stage water with nothing in it? That's so much negative space down there. So much negative space. In general, I feel like this stage is probably the stage with the biggest negative stage and negative space. Negative space being space that doesn't have anything in it. Or you would say negative design space, where negative possibility, I don't know what exactly you would call it, but just spaces with nothing in it, where you feel there should be something there, but instead there isn't anything. I got hurt by a butterfly, interesting. So for example, this area over here, look at how much space there is on this side over here with just 2 enemies or something in it. That's a lot of area over here with nothing in it. Then you have the water with nothing in it. And at least you have the stuff over here that has stuff on it. And then over here, also not too much stuff. I feel like there's so much space in this stage. I feel like the stage would have worked a lot better if they compacted it a bit more, like compacted everything a bit. Maybe this side area over here with the platforms. Maybe instead of having this as being a side area, you remove the entire area, shrink the stage by that area, and then instead put it next to it. You would use more of the stage. And I don't think you would lose anything by having it not be like this closed off side area. I think it would still be alright. But you wouldn't have like this half of the pool would suddenly be used for something, and it would probably feel nicer if it was compacter. Like I play a lot of maybe not a lot of, but I do play some Super Mario 64 ROM hacks sometimes, or just or indie games that are similar to this, where you have like some sort of platforming and jump around stuff and exploring a world with very active gameplay. And what I often see is people usually make stages either too big with nothing in it, a lot of negative space, or they cram everything too close together and it feels like you don't really have any freedom, like it's too cramped. And the first stage of this game I thought was really well done. It did have in some places a bit too much space, but apart from that I thought it was really well done. The 5th stage, Gallant Galaxy, I think also used the space pretty well. It does have a lot of distance between all the areas, but I think that's not necessarily bad, because it's not like water or ground that you could traverse. It's like this like pool of stuff that hurts you, which is very obvious places that you don't want to go to. And if it's a place that like hurts you and rebels against you being in it, I really don't mind it if there is a lot of it. Like imagine if this water down there was not water but stuff that hurt you. Obviously a lot of this stage wouldn't work anymore if that was the case, but at least you wouldn't feel like it's wasted space. Like let's say you would like this cave that's down there, the quills that are down there, the entrance to the palace, all of that stuff would have to be moved around. Obviously you would have to do stuff about it, but I feel like you wouldn't feel like there's so much empty space anymore if there was stuff that hurts you. It's a bit awkward, but I feel like that's actually what it would be. So yeah, anyway, like those ROM hacks that I mentioned earlier, I usually see levels that have a lot of ground in it and then not really anything on it, and then maybe have some stuff on the side of the stage, maybe have a thing in the middle of the stage, but then a lot of ground in between that with maybe not even coins on it. Why would you want to make me run around that much when you don't even have stuff on there? And I think, especially in like Super Mario 64, you don't even need to put that much stuff on there. You can like put some grass with enemies that hide in the grass and some coins around it. That can already fill quite a bit of a stage, and it already doesn't feel empty anymore. That can be nice. But in general, most of the time I'm just like, come on, just shrink the stage a bit. Just shrink the stage a bit. That would be good. Oh yeah, also in Moody Maze Marsh, there's also a lot of like water that hurts you, which doesn't feel like empty space because you know that it hurts you, and you don't want to go there anyway. Anyway, continue on with the stage. Here we have another really awkward thing where you go into this and it teleports you halfway, not even halfway, it teleports you across the entire stage. And I have no idea why. Why does this teleport you across the stage? You can't even see where you came from. Imagine if this was my first playthrough and I come over here. Maybe at this point I can kind of figure out that the frozen pillars are over there. But even then, I can't even see exactly where I came from. So I've got no idea. And The thing is, this area, I'm not even flying towards it. Now I'm flying towards it. It's even around the corner as well. It's not just hidden behind the pillars, it's also around the corner. Why? Why would you have a random teleporter across the entire stage with no feedback on where you've just gone? Do you want players to get lost? Because this is how you get players lost. This is how you get players very lost. And I don't know why. Also, I hate these enemies. Also, in case any of the developers are watching, I think there's a place around here. Is it this place? There's a place around one of these areas where you can actually just fly out of bounds because there's nothing blocking you. Nope, it's not this place. Anyway, I don't remember where it is. Anyway, so you have this area over here which... It does have a lot of space in it, but you have this igloo village with enemies running around, and then you have this like sort of quest, I would call it, on running around and destroying these igloos, so it doesn't feel like there's that much empty space, even though this is a big area, because there's actually stuff here. There's actually stuff here. This guy is a bit well hidden for my taste, but it's alright, I guess. I like the fact that there's this water over here which has a cave hidden beneath it. Like, you see that and then you're like, oh, is there a cave? Can I go through there? And you go through it and you're like, oh my god, there's a cave here. I found this cave. And that's a pretty nice thing. I like that part. It's a bit sad that the cave doesn't really have anything in it. I think it has a ghostwriter and a guy in it, which... It's not like... There's nothing important in here. I don't know if I just said that, but... There is important stuff in here, but rather I feel like gameplay-wise, there's just nothing to do in here. You come in here, collect ghost, talk to guy, done. There's not really any gameplay with that. I would like if there would be at least a bit more gameplay. Maybe you would have to jump around platforms or something. That would already make this area a little bit better. Like just by jumping on some platforms. Like make use of the gameplay that we have. We have gameplay in this game. Use it. Don't just have a place where you just run around and collect stuff. I want to collect stuff by using the gameplay mechanics that I know, like all my moves and jumping and fighting and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a thing as well. Like in general, if there's an area, even if it's big, if the player is repeatedly doing stuff, it probably won't feel empty. It probably won't feel empty ever if the player can actually do stuff all the time. So... Once again, if this was my first playthrough, I would be completely lost, as I actually was on my very first playthrough, because I had no idea where I was on the stage right now, no idea what to do. So now we've actually gone through most of the stage, believe it or not, at least before the expansion. We've gone through most of the stage, and we don't really have that feeling yet of I've explored this area, or I know where I'm going and I've systematically planned out in my head on how I want to explore the stage and collect everything. Like, don't forget, once again, we want to collect everything in the stage, every quill, every pagey. Not every player wants to do that, but most players, like at least all the players that came from Banjo-Kazooie, want to collect everything, like all the quills and pages at least in this stage. So, if that is our goal, then this level design is a little bit contrarious to that, because like I said, we've been through most of the stage. We don't really have a plan on how our collection is going. Like, let's say I would go to totals right now and I would look at the completion that I had for this, and it said something like 77 quills, 10 pages, and maybe 1 energy extender and 1 ghostwriter. Can I actually look at those numbers and then say I've done like 30% of the stage? Or can I say I have done like 60% of the stage? No. No, absolutely not, because I have no idea how they're distributed around the stage. And also, I don't even know if all the places I've been to, if I've already gotten all the stuff there. Have I gotten all the stuff in this village over here already? Have I gotten all the stuff in the water down there? Like, a lot of people would be very paranoid when they miss like a handful of quills of the pool down there. Because there's so much area down there and you don't really go there, that if you're missing a bunch of stuff, you might be like, well, I guess I'm just gonna go swim through the entire pool. which is really not very good at all. But if, once again, if there was something that hurt you, for example, or if it wasn't even there, you wouldn't even consider there being stuff in there that you would have to collect. You also have the back entrance to the frozen cave over here, which at least connects these parts of the stage very nicely together. I like that. I like that that connects the parts of the stage together. I like it when stage connects to itself very naturally, not using teleporters, but naturally. I like that. This area also, I like the gameplay part of this area where you have to like carry the torch from place to place, and at the very end, if you've lit them all up, you can then go through the entire cave without ever having to become fiery again, because now it's nice and warm and it's not cold anymore. I like that. I like that. That's a nice place in there. Definitely some points for that cave in there. Like I'm spending so much time usually talking about the bad stuff, but that's just whenever I see good stuff, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's good, that's well done, and then I just move on to the next part. But yeah, overall, this stage is not actually that bad, I think. It does have some bad places, mostly in actually figuring out how everything connects to each other, but overall it's an okay stage. Not quite as good as the first one, definitely not, but it's an okay stage. Yeah, like the biggest two parts I don't like about the stage is too much space, not knowing where to go. I'm gonna talk about this later again when I have my verdict, my overall stuff. But let's go a bit more through the stage. We have this entire area over here, which I have no idea why it even exists, other than, okay, there's a place you have to jump to over here to get a hat for a snowman with the snowmobile. But why is this area so big? Why is this area over here so big with pretty much nothing on it apart from like a handful of enemies? Like, for example, this entire area over here, there's so much to walk around in. So much to walk around in over here. A rock. Well, the only thing I see is like 2 enemies and 2 balls. 2 eyeballs. 2 eyeball pairs. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why this like giant area over here with nothing in it. Actually, you know why this area has to be here? Because there's the platform area underneath here. But if, like I said earlier, if they just moved this entire platform area to the side of this, and then remove this area over here, this area wouldn't need to exist. This area, like let's say this entire area was instead part of the cliff. Like where I'm standing right now would be a cliff that goes upwards. And then you could still have the snowmobile coming over here, the reasonably priced car, I mean, and the reasonably priced car could jump over here, and there could be like maybe a little bit of a cave or something on the side of the cliff. You jump into it, and then you use the reasonably priced car to go and get the hat for the snowman. So because if the only reason you come over here is because of that item, and this entire area only exists because there's an area below it. Move it to the side, make it a cliff, cave in the cliff, done. Perfect solution, in my opinion at least. I'm not a professional level designer, but that is how I personally, as someone who takes a close look at level design very often in whatever game I play. It doesn't even matter if it's a jump run, and play a lot of different games and talk to other people, like I said in the part 0. I think I have somewhat of an idea on at least very, I don't want to say big improvements, but very obvious improvements, in my opinion at least. Maybe other people would disagree, but in my opinion that would be a very obvious improvement. Also, don't make this down there a teleporter. Now you could argue that, but wait a second, if this is not a teleporter, but we want to somehow connect to the area on the other side of the stage. How do we do that? How do we connect from that side of the stage to the other side of the stage if we don't have a teleporter? Because this is a really long way. This is a really long way we can go. Well, first off, you could actually turn this teleporter into an actual gameplay segment where, let's say, you had a sort of cave that you could use your rolling to roll through a bunch of stuff. Maybe you could have a whole different new part of gameplay that's not really in any other part of the game. Like, let's say you roll around some ramps, but you have to repeatedly hit some buttons that you can stand on or even roll over to open up gates. Maybe they're timed as well. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Just random ideas on what you could have done. Like, yeah, you roll over you open up some gates with some buttons. You roll around some ramps with your rolling ability. Maybe you have to, in between, flutter around a bit with the flutter ability you've got. Maybe you have to use some slurp state. You can turn it into a gauntlet. That would be really nice. You have some nice gameplay. Now, because that would be a cave over there, maybe it doesn't help you too much to figure out on when you come out on exactly where you are, but you would at least know, oh, I've gone in this direction for quite some distance. That's still a way better help than just a teleporter, because then you have no idea on where you're going and how far you've gone. But if it was a cave in that direction, you'd be like, okay, cave, that direction, a really long distance, I'm probably on the other side of the stage now. That would help a lot. Another idea that you could have used is maybe something that I don't really want to put in there, but it's still a better idea. Let's say there was something like a cannon over here, or something where you can jump into, and then it shoots you over to the other side of the stage. And while you shoot over to the other side of the stage, you can then look around in midair and look around you and be like, oh my god, there's all the stage everywhere. And then you get a good idea of the stage in that way as well. Personally, I don't like that too much because it feels like a lazy movement to just put you in a place with a cannon. But then again, a teleporter is even more lazy than that, so it's at least better than a teleporter, you know. So that's another thing that you could do, and with that cannon you would have a very good idea on where you've gone and how far you've gone and where everything is in relation to that. We obviously have to like program a cannon, because this is not actually something that's in the game right now. But then once you program it, you can use it for other gameplay stuff in the game as well, and make other challenges that are really nice. So yeah, that's at least for the most part, the outside of this stage before expanding. I mean, there's some other areas around here. I think for the most part, these areas up here are alright. You could have maybe put a little bit more gameplay into the area jumping around here, because a lot of this is just, you just walk around these places. Yeah, maybe you roll up a hill maybe a little, and there's some enemies. And it's the same for all these three pillars. For all these three pillars, you just walk up, fight some enemies. It's not too, but it does have a little bit other stuff, like the grenades, seeds that you find, and you also have the ghost in the ghost writer over there that's hidden, stuff like that. So it's not completely devoid of anything else, and you do have the mission of destroying the blocks around the statue, so you have that as well. So like I said, it's not too bad. They could have added maybe a little bit more to it, but for the most part it's alright. What I don't like is the fact that you have to come up here and do platforming as a reasonably priced car, because the handling as a reasonably priced car is all over the place. Because the problem is that it actually controls like you would control a truck. Like if you have a little bit of speed and you go around a corner, you just go in really wide angles and stuff like that, and you really feel the weight of the truck. And while it's good that it's realistic, at the same time, if the controls are like that, then why do we have to do tight, cornered and precise jumping across platform and going around corners down there very tightly? Why do we have to do that if we have these controls? Like, the controls and the platforming that we have to do don't quite fit together that well, which is a bit of a shame. The reasonably priced car works a lot better when you go through the cave or something, where you can just charge through it and like mow stuff down. That feels a lot nicer when you just go through the cave and just mow stuff down, charge through it. Oh, that's a lot nicer than this. Anyway, you can also go up here by using the honey, which you can use with slurp state to make it up these ramps, which personally I like. I don't have too much to say about this. I like this area. It's a good... these ramps, I think, are good. The old ramps also get progressively harder until this part, where it's the easiest ramp of them all. And I think this could have been maybe this ramp up here could have been made harder as well. That there's actually like a linear progression of challenge. Like, it starts down there with the ramp where it's like, okay, you need honey for this, but okay, just go around the corner and you've done it. And then it's like, okay, we need honey again, but this time there's enemies as well. Oh, we've stepped it up a little bit. And maybe at this time they could maybe put enemies, and also you'd have to jump over some holes or something. I don't know. Again, you could also then say that maybe that's a bit too harsh, because if you fall down, you're all the way down there and you have to climb back up again. I see that. I see that being a valid concern, and that's why I don't feel too sadly about this. And I think it's still alright. The last part is not any harder than this, but yeah, like I said, it's alright, So, we also have the cave down there, the glitter gem grotto. Gem grotto, I think it was called that. The grotto below the water down there, which personally I liked. I really like the area down there. Once again, points for that area down there, the dark grotto where you have to use the slurp state to make it brighter so that you can find your way around. Even though I don't actually ever need to use it because it's not like I have high brightness, it's just that I feel like the cave is not actually that dark, so you could just go through it without the thing on the darkness. Yeah, without lighting it, we can do it without lighting up the darkness, and it's totally fine. Yeah. So now we've actually gone through everything pre-expansion in this stage, and yeah, it doesn't really feel that complete, does it? I'm not saying it feels complete as in, oh, we need to do the expansion stuff, so it feels complete. But it feels, in my opinion, it doesn't feel that complete because all the areas around here are very far apart from each other and separated by this empty space that is the pools and the frozen pillars down there. That's why I feel like it doesn't really feel that complete, this stage. Even with expansion. There's just so much empty space in here, and everything is so far apart from each other. But enough about that, I've talked at length about that already. So instead, let's talk about some more good parts. And I'm gonna go through it by going down here. So we're gonna go into the Isometric Palace, or as I call it, the Solstice Palace. If a developer is watching, I fucking love this place, and I like the fact that this is pretty much Solstice. People said they want a new Yooka-Laylee, and I was like, it doesn't have to be a new Yooka-Laylee if you make a sequel. What it could also be is a spiritual successor to Solstice. Oh, that would be so great, because as we can see in this area, it works really well. So if you don't know what Solstice is an isometric puzzle platformer on the NES, which was, oh, it was so good, such a good game, and this place feels a lot like it because of this, like, the way this palace is built, where you have like these isometric viewpoint rooms, where it's like each room is a little bit of its own challenge and a little bit of its own puzzle, its own gameplay section, and they're strung together very naturally. And I really like that part, and that's also what Solstice did. And I think one of the signs in here said something about interior designer is a guy called Solstice or something, so the developers were definitely well aware of this. So yeah. Anyway, now I've said so much bad stuff about the stage outside, but now let's talk more about the good stuff. I liked Solstice Palace, or Isometric Palace. I'm gonna call it Isometric Palace. This weird for the same reason why Solstice was a good game. There's so much varied gameplay between all of these rooms, and it feels like each room is its own little adventure. By the way, you can open this gate from this side, only from this side, by rushing into it with the tail rush. Lizard rush. Yeah, lizard rush. So, in case you didn't know that, now you know that. One thing I find a bit odd is the fact that this area up here exists, because if you come here without having beaten the boss first and activated this vent, you might forget that this thing is here, because if you go here, you might not realize that the vent is actually important. So you would have to come here later again after defeating the boss, and then figure out there's something up here. So, though I do like the fact that there is an additional area on this side that feels a bit like a secret, but at the same time I feel like it's not. It feels more like a chance to happen upon it, other than actually looking for it and then being like, oh my god, I found a secret. Yeah, it's more like if you come over here after defeating the boss, you will find it. If you come over here before defeating the boss, you have no way of knowing it, and that's a bit sad. But yeah. So I'm not gonna go too much around this area, because I feel like there's not too much to be said about each individual room, other than something that could be said about all the rooms as like in total. One thing I want to mention though is that this puzzle over here, man, I actually couldn't figure this out at the start. Like when I first came in here, I was like, oh, bubbles, he definitely wants the bubble move, right? And then I did the bubble move and did some stuff, and I was like, wait, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm bubbling right now. Why does it not work? I did stuff like this. Oh, it doesn't work. And then I sort of gave up and I tried other stuff. Because the thing is, he did something like there's not enough gas or something, and I can kind of see, you can kind of see pipes around here. And I was like, oh wait, he needs gas. There's pipes down there. Maybe you need to activate something in the pipes. And then I got completely misled. But yeah, you actually do this by just spamming the buddy bubble button while underwater like this, and that does it. Yeah, but that's just a thing on the side. Doesn't actually matter too much. For level design at least. Yeah, back to Ice Magic Palace. So Ice Magic Palace, the only bad thing that I could say about this palace, but I guess you could also have to say that about Solstice and similar games, is that sometimes it feels not very intuitive on where stuff connects to each other. So if you go through this stage or this palace the very first time, you might have a really hard time figuring out where you are in relation to anything else. Oh wait, does he kill you like this? Oh no, invisible wall, wow. The thing is, I don't actually think you can do too much about it. Maybe if you like really rack your head, you can really try and maybe somehow figure out how you're gonna design the space around here to tell the player where they are. Maybe you color code the rooms. And maybe let's say this is the green room, and then if you look over here, there's like a red light coming from that room, and if you come in here, then this room is like more like reddish or something, and then there's a blue light coming from over there, and then maybe you can color code it like that. But the thing is, there's so many rooms in here that the colors would run out very quickly, and even then you would still have to remember which color is what. So yeah, I don't think you can quite get the player to understand where everything is unless you like give them a map. And once you give them a map, a lot of the exploration is out of the game. So I would never give the player a map, but they do get lost a bit. I don't think you can't do much about that. So even though it's still a negative point, because I do have to mention it, I don't think it's too much of a big negative point because you can't do much about it. So this is the actual entrance of the palace. If you come here after defeating the boss, you can see this, and then use it to get all the way over there and get some nice little health extender. That's good. Which, if you have the tonic for it, I don't know what tonic is called, the Anthrotonic, I think it was called, then it actually signals around this area, and you can kind of see, oh, there's stuff out there. That's pretty cool. But yeah. Besides that, like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into this area because for the most part, this area is very solid. This is definitely my favorite part of this stage, and is, I think, probably even my favorite part of like the first half of this game. The first half of this game is, I think, like the first and second stage, and up to entering Rudy Maze Mars. I think that would be the first half of this game, if you 100% it. And because the thing is, like I said earlier, I really like that there's so much varied gameplay in this area. Each room is its own separate challenge with like its own encapsulated bits of nice little challenging gameplay, and you go from room to room and you're always like, oh, what's gonna be next? What's gonna be next? Am I gonna use this ability, use these two abilities combined? Maybe it's a little bit of a gauntlet, maybe it's some enemies, and maybe I have to do some shooting. I really like that part, like how much variety is in here in the gameplay. And I also really like the camera for this, because you don't have to worry about the camera anymore. The camera doesn't get in your way. It's just gameplay. It's just gameplay that you have to worry about in this area, and I really like that. Though I do still have to give some minus points for the maze at the end, where you sort of have to figure out which way goes where. If you don't know, I think if I were to go to the left and then left again and then go all the way to the end, you would come to a place where you have a room similar to this, where you have 3 ways to go to and an entrance. So entrance and 3 ways. And if you go the wrong way, you get teleported back to the start. And then if you go the right way, you go into a new room that looks almost exactly the same. And then you have to figure out what the correct way is again. If you get the wrong way again, you get teleported back to room 1. And you have to keep doing that for like 5 rooms in a row until you make it to the end. And there is some stuff at the start that says something on the wall, but I couldn't figure out how to do stuff. I really couldn't. I think I got to this point in the game where I had all the moves and used all the moves that I could in various ways. Maybe like this move, maybe stuff like that. Maybe invisible do stuff, and maybe somehow I could figure out which is the correct way. But I couldn't figure out what the correct way was. I just couldn't at all. So I just brute forced it, and I talked to other people as well. I couldn't find a single person that actually found a way on how to like consistently figure out what the correct way is other than trial and error. And that felt really bad in my opinion. Trial and error mazes? Yuck! Why? I really didn't like that. And there was something else about that at the end there that oh yeah, then at the end you have this puzzle where you have to shine a light through the room, and then you have to use the camel move, this one, to redirect the light over to the chest. And the big problem with that is that when you first get to that room, if you don't have the camo ability, and if you also don't know that the camo ability can reflect light like that, then you have absolutely no way of knowing what to do there. And I've seen plenty of people get there, and then because it's something you've never encountered before, but I don't know how to explain it. Like I said at the very start of the stage, if you have a jump and nothing around it, you can very easily see, okay, I need a move that lets me jump higher, and then I can do it. But that puzzle at the end there, a lot of people it's really weird to figure out that you do need a specific move for that. Like, of course, after a specific while, you would say, like, of course, I guess I really can't do anything. I really need another move, I guess. But it's not that obvious in my opinion. Maybe, I don't know how they could have made it more obvious, because that mechanic in general is something that's not actually that obvious, that you can use the invisibility, the camo, to do that. So, I don't know. I'm not gonna say... of course, I'm gonna say it's something that I have to give minus points for, but at the same time, I can't think of anything off the top of my head on how to do it better. Maybe you can put a sign that gives you a hint on that you would have to use a specific thing, and then maybe you read that hint, and then you're like, oh, that sounds like something I can't do yet. So maybe that's something you could figure out, but maybe you would use a completely different puzzle instead, but then you would kind of miss out on the chance of using that mechanic. So, I don't know. I really don't know how to get around that, but yeah. At least, like I said, in general, I really I love even the Ice Magic Palace, and how it's so much like Solstice. I really like that. Please make more Solstice. Platonic games, make Solstice a successor. I know there actually has been a Solstice successor named Equinox, and I think there's been another one as well, but I don't think those were actually that good. So yeah, make a spiritual Solstice successor that kicks ass. That would be incredible. Oh yeah, I would love that so much. People don't even know they want it yet, but once they see it, they know they will want it. That. Anyway, we've gone through pretty much all of this stage, and I guess I'm going to talk a little bit more about overall stuff instead of just talking about the individual stuff. So overall, let's go about something that I've said for the first stage as well, like the variety. I think the variety, like color-wise in this stage, is alright. I feel like some of the greens around the side could be a bit brighter, to give a little bit more of a contrast with all of the bluish-white stuff, because there's a lot of blue-white. Like, blue-white is pretty much the entire stage, which is why I would have really liked it if the crystals on the side were a bit more green. But that's an incredibly tiny nitpick. Like, that's an atom size worth of a nitpick. So incredibly tiny stuff. But overall, it also is a stage that looks alright. There's also some purples around, some color splashes here and there with the trees. It's alright, actually. It's alright. It's actually alright. Gameplay-wise, there is quite a bit of variety in a lot of these places. But I feel like not once again, I guess I could say, like, overall, if I were to, like, put in a verdict or a, like, a verdict, is that a lot of the gameplay is spread thin over a large area with nothing in it, nothing around it. You spend a lot of time in this stage walking from area to area, figuring out where you are, and not actually that much time with the gameplay. Which is exactly the opposite in Isometric Palace, where you don't spend that much time walking around and figuring out where you are at all. Well, you don't have to figure out where you are, because you can't. You're just going from room to room anyway. And that's just only gameplay. There's just only gameplay in there, and I really like that. But in here, it's just like, well, you just run around figuring out stuff. Not that much gameplay, and feels a bit dry at points. But yeah, I guess that would be my overall verdict. I would say it's still an alright stage. It's still an alright stage, but it could have been done so much better. It could have been done so much better. That's a lot of, in my opinion, missed potential. Like, I've even given my opinions on how it could have been improved, on how it could have been done better. And there's only a few ideas that could have been done so much more. So yeah, like I said, a lot of lost potential, but the stuff that is there, like the actual gameplay stuff that is there, is alright. And especially Isometric Palace is definitely a high point of probably the entire game even. So definitely a lot of big points for that. So yeah, I think that's about it. I hope I didn't forget anything. If you like this, like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And I will be seeing you guys next on Moody Maze Marsh, which is gonna be receiving quite some harsh words. I can already say that. There's gonna be a lot of harsh words about Moody Maze Marsh. So look forward to that. Or don't look forward to that if you like me saying good stuff about this game. But if you like me saying bad stuff about the game, next part is gonna have a lot of that. If you like me saying good stuff about the game, look forward to Galleon Galaxy, because that, so good. Anyway, that was that. If you have anything to add to the stuff I've said in any of these parts, I don't know if I said this before, but if you have anything to add to any of the stuff I said, if you want to talk to me about any specific points, you can just leave a comment. I read every single comment ever. So definitely a place to start. So yeah, that was that. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you guys next time in part 3 of Moody Maze Marsh.